Imagine you're building a sandcastle. Sandcastle at the beach, what a wonderful day. And if you've never built a sandcastle, let me explain it to you. You take a bucket and you put some sand in a bucket. I know, engineering at its finest. And then you waddle on down to the water with your bucket full of sand, and then you get the perfect mixture of water to create this cement-like structure in the bucket. And then you waddle back up with your bucket full of now heavy sand and water, and then, if you're lucky, you've chosen the perfect area for your new fortress. And then you flip the bucket upside down, and then you tack the bucket on the top. And when you release the bucket from the sand, you will have a perfect one side of your sandcastle. You repeat this a bunch of times, and you eventually build a wall and maybe a moat, and maybe you tell people to get away from your sandcastle because it's the most perfect thing that you've ever done in your life. And people are walking by, they're like, wow, that's a really nice sandcastle you got there. And you're like, thank you, I've been working on it all day. And you take some seashells and you finally put them on top of all of your little columns, or maybe the walls, maybe even build a door. And then there's this one kid. And you've been looking at him in the corner of your eye this whole time, but now he sees that your sandcastle's finished.
His sandcastle looks like shit.
So he comes over and he says, hey, that's a nice sandcastle. And you say, thank you, I've been working on it all day. And without warning, he just starts stomping all over your sandcastle because
he's a little shit.
When you finally get the nerve to ask him, why did you step all over my sandcastle? He just looks down at you and says, because I don't like you. That's kind of what it's like to lose a platform of 385,000 followers on TikTok simply because TikTok didn't like me. I mean, if I don't laugh about it, I'll cry. And I've already done one of those two things on the internet, so. Oof. Hi, in case you couldn't tell by that very angsty intro, I have been on TikTok. Which, I mean, like, no, it's not fair. That's not fair. Fuck you guys. So I got banned on TikTok, and it inspired me to make this video. I've had my eyes opened in the past couple weeks as to how shady of an app TikTok really is, and I'd like to discuss it in this video. I'd like to break this video down into three main parts. First, we're going to talk about TikTok and its algorithm and how ever elusive and vague it is, and then we're going to talk about controversies and my conclusions / predictions for the future about TikTok. But before we do that, I wanted to thank everybody so much for coming to my new platform. I did not expect to have to switch platforms so suddenly, but ultimately I think it's a good move for me, and I'm very excited to start a platform where I can talk more at length. I know TikTok has given me the attention span of a pollywog, so I know I'm going to forget things in this video, but hopefully it comes out as cohesive as I'd like it to. Without further ado, let's get into the video. TikTok. Trends, dances, $92 million privacy class action lawsuits. It's got it all. All the big hallmarks of a gigantic company worth $50 billion downloaded 2 billion times on the App Store. I personally had some misconceptions about how TikTok came to be. I always thought that TikTok came from Musical.ly, but that's not actually the case. Musical.ly was a small Chinese company created in 2013 that was originally supposed to be an educational app. Once they realized that there was no profit in education, they changed up their platform a little bit, and they realized they became super successful when they allowed people to make 15-second videos of people lip-syncing to their favorite songs. In 2016, another app with a similar premise had come onto the scene. They were owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. They were called TikTok. Now, TikTok eventually bought out the now very successful Musical.ly in 2017 for $1 billion. Now, objectively, that's a lot of money. That's currently as much as 23andMe, the popular genealogical site, is worth now. In order for us to really dive into TikTok and how it works, you need to know the basics of how TikTok works as a platform. Once you enter into the app, you have what's called your following page and your For You page. Now, your following page are people that you followed, unless TikTok has unfollowed them for you. This is essentially where you are going to see permanent content from people that you have subscribed to already. Your For You page is where the algorithm of TikTok shines its brightest. This is what Google ads are to somebody's Facebook page. Highly suggestive and honestly, a little too specific. For a long time, the algorithm of TikTok was kept as secret as the Krabby Patty formula. But ultimately, I think that I have a pretty good grasp based upon what both TikTok has shown me and what being a consumer and creator has shown me. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm not an engineer, I am not a code writer, so me looking at how the algorithm works is probably similar to an entomologist looking at a rock and going, yeah, it's got stripes in it. Now, TikTok has come out and said in a transparency report what the algorithm is, but ultimately, any company that uses the word magic to describe their algorithm, it makes me a little concerned. Here's why. Now, according to TikTok, there's 3 main ways that your algorithm is going to work for you. And the first way is going to be known as user interactions. So this is likes, shares, content you create, and the comments that you post. Let's just say on your For You page, you see somebody that you really like their content, you decide to leave a comment on there. Well, how many emojis you leave in that comment, the words that you use in that comment, as well as the way you type, like your vernacular, as well as how many caps you use, are all recorded and will be used as a part of signaling your For You page to bring you content creators that also type in the same way you do. This is how the algorithm is so successful. Everything about the algorithm is made to be for you. The next way that the algorithm works, according to TikTok, is called video information. This is hashtags, captions, sounds you use, and what you say when you create your videos. But Emily, I'm not a creator, so how do they still know my For You page? Well, that's the beauty of it. Just because you don't create content doesn't mean TikTok doesn't know what you like. The third way the algorithm works. Device and account settings. This means your language setting, your country preference, as well as the device you're using. So if you're an iPhone user in Louisiana, then you are going to be recommended people who you might relate to based upon those demographics. Now, although TikTok doesn't explicitly say biometrics here, TikTok has been known to use facial biometrics, and this is part of one of the reasons why many people felt that it was a threat to national security, which we will again talk about later. Facial biometrics is essentially a net of pinpoints that lay over your face and creates a specific map of your bone structure. This is how a lot of iPhones are able to use facial recognition to unlock your phone. But TikTok also uses this technology, and it can be used against creators. Now, the fourth reason isn't necessarily something TikTok talks about as well. I've added this in. It is a footnote after the third way that the algorithm works on their site, but I'd like to talk about it. And I'm going to call it video indicators. This to me is very, very similar to YouTube. The longer you watch a video, the stronger a signal it generates, and therefore the more the For You page is going to recommend videos like it. Ultimately, the more you watch a video, the more that type of video is going to be recommended to you. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty part of this video. Controversies. Just using the Googles to Google TikTok controversies is like throwing a ping pong ball into a ball pit. For the longest time, it seemed that the controversies were surrounding the algorithm and how it works. And as a creator, I now know that the algorithm, what I was saying in certain parts of my demographics and certain videos of mine were being suppressed. But I really didn't know to the extent of how many creators and what type of creators were being discriminated against until I looked deeper down at the TikTok level. I know that although I am a political TikToker and I talk about social justice issues, that is a very, very privileged thing to say. I had no idea of the scale at which LGBTQ creators as well as Black creators were being discriminated, suppressed, and ultimately pushed off of TikTok as a platform. So basically, back when TikTok was first starting out, they did this study with a German company. This pissed me the fuck off. Essentially, they took a bunch of people who were either in the LGBTQ community or disabled, and they put pictures of them up on a screen. And if the test subject said, yeah, I'd bully them based upon their appearance, then they were marked down in the algorithm as the potential to be cyberbullied, so their videos were suppressed. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like the biggest crock of shit I have ever heard in my life. You don't discriminate the people that are being cyberbullied. You tell the people that are doing the cyberbullying to knock it the fuck off. off. It's such an ass backwards way of dealing with cyberbullying. And to this day, TikTok has put out statement after statement after statement saying that they do not stand for bullying. In fact, they put out 2 major transparency reports, one in September of 2020 and the earliest just last month, explaining that most of the content banned on their site was targeted towards minors, harming minors, and or bullying and harassment. Like I said before, their target demographic is minors, so they're not going to allow people on their page who do not fit that demographic. But their demographic isn't just minors. Here's why. Back in May of 2020, America was seeing some of the biggest civil unrest that it had seen since the civil rights movement. And this is where we get to the glitch. The glitch is reference to a hashtag problem in which many people were hashtagging hashtag George Floyd and hashtag Black Lives Matter. Now, back in May, there was actually this moment where people were realizing that their content or them as a user were being flagged and or suppressed because they were using these hashtags, because they stand on an issue of social justice and race. And TikTok does not like that. So they flagged anyone who used this hashtag, and they also suppressed their content. Anyway, the suppression is probably not that bad. Really? Let's look at my analytics. So I stopped at about 386,000 followers. The current amount of my analytics over the past 28 days is here. As you can see, there would be these videos that do really well in the TikTok algorithm for some reason, whether because of my hashtags or because of the way I was using my vernacular. And then there would be this very steady decline in views. And it wasn't that I wasn't getting likes, it wasn't that I wasn't getting followers, because the amount of people following my page per visit of my page was still about a 1-to-4 ratio. It was literally the amount of views on my videos was being suppressed at such a high rate. It got down to the point where I was getting only about 5,000 to 10,000 views per post. And it wasn't that I was using different hashtags, because in some cases I used the same hashtags in every video. I used consistent hashtags. I talked about things consistently. It was simply because the things I was talking about were ultimately considered divisive by TikTok, and therefore my analytics suffered for it. In the last 3 weeks of my channel, I would talk about something that wasn't necessarily divisive, that I knew would do well in the algorithm, and then the very next day I would talk about a divisive subject. I would simply revert back to my political content, or I would revert back to my social content, whether it's in the For You page or the following page. This was not about my profile not being seen. This was about the content I was posting being considered divisive enough to be suppressed. Sometimes we have to look at the negative space around what TikTok is actually saying about the algorithm and be a creator or a content consumer to actually understand how it works. A great example of how, while my content is suppressed because it's naturally divisive and other trends going viral, is the trend of the daddy POV trend. Let me just add a trigger warning here, because what we are going to talk about can be pretty triggering for some people. So essentially, you can choose any song on TikTok that you want to make a TikTok to. And certain songs are associated with a trend that goes super viral on TikTok, garnishing hundreds of millions of views, and some of these people making entire musical careers based upon going viral on TikTok. This one particular trend, though, revolved around a song called Dissolve by Abso Facto. The filmer was from the point of view of a child, and the child would walk in on their parents wrestling, and then the father would roll over or turn around and then explain what was going on to a child in the room. Another sort of similar trend was you would walk in on somebody changing, and it would be like, you walked in on me changing, what are you doing? Eventually, some of these trends got so bad that the artist got on TikTok and said, stop using my song for your nasty ass POVs. Like, I don't like this. I don't like the way it looks. It ultimately is destroying my song that I worked really hard on. Please stop. And in most cases, TikTok did not take some of the videos down from content creators. They left them up. And it really goes to show that although their target demographic is children, ultimately it's about the bottom line, just like any large corporation. Now, the next video, I believe, can be a whole video in and of itself, but I think it's kind of one of the funnier ones, so I want to talk about it. Back in June of 2020, the former president's campaign was at its height. This was a steam train from hell, a turd on wheels, and was heading right for the Capitol. At one point, a bunch of TikTokers decided they were going to buy out all of the seats in the Tulsa, Oklahoma presidential rally. The former president decided that this would be a very good time to take his tiny hands and a tiny shovel and dig down 1 inch to find that TikTok was owned by a Chinese company. It was an easy sell to try to ban TikTok in the entirety of the United States because remember, according to the former president and his followers, China equals COVID equals communism equals only good when Russia does it. So it was a very easy sell that China equals TikTok equals bad. Ultimately, the former president put an emergency action in place that said, unless TikTok became American-owned within a certain number of days, the Chinese company was going to be banned in America altogether. Now, I believe that this was all a ploy, as one of the 2 companies that had originally partnered with ByteDance to be America-owned pulled out. The other current company that still owns 7.5% of TikTok is the Walton family, aka the owners of Walmart. You ever wonder why the algorithms changed? But that's just a conspiracy theory that I have. Now, another small controversy that I think deserves to be talked about here is the $92 million class action lawsuit in which TikTok says, don't worry, we weren't sending your data overseas, which in multiple reports, TikTok says that they would stop sending your data overseas. So I'm not really sure where they landed on this. They probably were. It's a Chinese-owned company and China's government can do whatever it wants. So it's not a far-fetched for me to believe that if the Chinese government wanted the data collected by ByteDance, they could easily reach for it. But as far as them currently collecting data, I don't know. Like I said before, TikTok's algorithm is kept as secret as the Krabby Patty secret formula, and I am not about to try to be plankton. Okay, so now you know how the algorithm is blatantly, in my opinion, very homophobic, racist, and ableist. Here is my conclusion as to why myself and many other TikTok creators have been banned. Ultimately, I didn't violate any terms of service until I chose to do so on my own. I knew I was violating terms of service when I posted my earnings talking about the algorithm. I had at that point been denied from the Creator Fund and knew that anything that I said at this point was probably going to be against terms of service, but at that point I didn't care. I wasn't being paid by TikTok anymore. Although I didn't violate terms of service, I still am not part of the core demographic that TikTok is currently looking for. TikTok is cracking down hard on other creators, some of them being part of the LGBTQ and Black communities simply because the TikTok algorithm views people who are part of these communities as naturally divisive. People like myself who speak out on social and political issues that mean a lot to them aren't part of what TikTok is looking for. They are looking for straight, white, dancing men or women, and if you're not a part of that demographic, then you're ultimately not going to be pushed by the app. This is not about TikTok not having the ability to pay me. This is about TikTok not wanting to pay creators like me. TikTok, like many other companies around the world, is fighting the ever-growing challenge of getting Gen Z's attention and keeping it. Because although Gen Z currently might not have a lot of money, they ultimately have time. Time in quarantine, time with their friends, time to spend online. The more time they garnish, the more money a company makes. This is where my prediction for the future of TikTok comes in. TikTok ultimately is tying its own noose here. The more time and money that they put into Gen Z and getting their attention, the more time marches on. Gen Z might stay Gen Z forever, but they're going to get older. Their interests and hobbies and the way they grow up is going to change. Ultimately, if TikTok wants to continue being a child's app, then they have to get rid of everybody that they would see as not child friendly. Now, is that racist? Is that ableist? Is that homophobic? In TikTok's case, in my opinion, yes. Until TikTok users and creators stand up and say that they will not stand for the injustice that TikTok is doing to their creators, TikTok will continue to do it. And until people start to realize that supporting an app like TikTok does absolutely nothing for minority communities, it will continue to suppress them. Hi guys, thanks for watching my video. I really appreciate you making it this far. If you'd like to support me on my Patreon, I will have it linked down below, as well as my merch line and my Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for joining me on my first video. I'm really excited to be here and to continue giving content to you guys. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.